Because I just had a very lively conversation at my table with the upcoming speaker, who you might not recognize on the agenda because, like me, he's wearing a hat in this photo. And I know it is, like, you're like a different person, you know, when you got the cool hat on. But Clark Kent, you got the red shirt, so I like it. So Superman's coming up here in our next talk. He is a research scientist at HP Labs at their social computing lab. And he focuses on novel human-centered intersections between research communities, both within and beyond computer sciences. He's been in a lot of different areas, everything from visualization to data mining to graphic designing, and of course, in all of the work that we do, hopefully, with technology these days, a lot of psychology and even special education. And on an unrelated note, which he would like all of you to be aware of, in case you're looking around San Francisco for things to do and bring and share with him, his favorite ice cream flavor is chocolate chip cookie dough. With that, Joshua Hailpern.
Thank you. So usually when I give talks, I have to start off by convincing everyone that information overload is a problem. That's usually 5 to 10 minutes. So I get to skip over that part, and I actually get to jump in and show you one of my all-time favorite apps that I have on my phone. So this is Yahoo Weather, and this is an amazing, amazing app. So I took a little video just to sort of show you how great this is, and you should all get it. So Yahoo Weather, when you first launch it, it grabs images from Flickr in real time based off of the different locations. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous app. As you switch between the different cities with a swipe of your finger, it's an elegant interface. It feels very lightweight. It's almost beautiful to sort of go through all the different weather locations. When you scroll up, you actually pull up all the information. You get your forecast for the different days. You have a map that will load in with the different weather patterns. I love this thing with the weather, where the weather, it's 6 miles an hour. You can see the windmills turn. Now it's 12, so it's going faster. So it's this beautiful system that you sort of move through effortlessly. And even though there's all this information, you never feel burdened by it. One of my favorite parts is actually this. Watch when you go up and down. I'm going to show it to you in a second. The background blurs. So as you're scrolling up and getting more information, the background fades away. This is a beautifully elegant, I just was going up and down, up and down. I mean, it's a beautifully elegant system that they created that nowhere in this interaction do you feel like, oh, there's so much information. But now let me ask you something. How many of you actually remember what the weather temperature was in Costa Rica? How about in Lake Forest? Okay, the last one was Mountain View. Who remembers what the temperature was in Mountain View? Okay, so you remember the most recent one, but 2 ago, 3 ago, you didn't. That's information overload. Information overload is more than the symptom of feeling overwhelmed. It's even if you present information to somebody in a way that they then don't remember 10 seconds later when it's on a large screen, that's not good information presentation. That's not good technology. Now, when I was doing my PhD, one of the courses that I took, many courses were on graphic design, but I had this one professor who said, design is purpose. Everything else is style. And that was a really interesting point. And so one of the classic examples of this is like the FedEx logo in graphic design. This is a gorgeous logo. And one of the main reasons is hidden in that logo is an arrow. Most people don't even know that it's there. But subliminally, we have this motion with FedEx. It's going forward. It's technology moving. It's getting your package there. It's a great logo. It has design. It has purpose. But that notion stayed with me since I took that course, because it's true for more than just graphic design. If we build technology with purpose and let everything else fall away, you actually don't have this problem of information overload that we are all spending our time talking about. And when people talk about how to solve information overload, I hear 3 main things. The first one is big data. Oh, we've got big data and we've got algorithms and we just throw that at your problem and then it's gone. Or you have people that say, well, we need some sexy interface so that when people, it's slick, it's cool, that's gonna solve the problem. Or maybe they say, you need to understand your customers better. You need to go out, do some marketing, do some market research, and then your system will be good. But in reality, without any of these 3 things, without this stool, right? You need 3 legs on a stool for it to stand up. If you don't have all 3 of these, you're gonna have information overload. So we all think about information overload when you're missing design. I think that's a very, very common thing that we talk about, right? You've got all the right data, you know that the problem that you're solving is real, but think about the dashboards that you present to financial analysts. These are horribly unusable systems, but they have the right data and they have the right customers. So that's classic traditional information overload. But when you take out the customers, but you have good design and big data, that's what I call the one-size-fits-all solution. One-size-fits-none, sorry. One-size-fits-none. Because you've made such a generic tool that can analyze data, anyone can use it, but you know what? It's not solving any problems. It just sort of lets you run and do nothing at the same time. And now if you remove the big data so that you've got design and you know your customers, this is what I call amateur hour. This is a lot of the apps that you see on the app stores for our phones. These are things that look really cool. They're super easy to use. They are solving a real problem, but they don't scale. They can't handle enterprise level solutions because they're not built off of that foundation of real data. They can't handle it. So I guess the main point of what I'm trying to get across to you is that there's this love triangle between these three areas. And you need to consider all of them if you want to effectively handle the problem of information overload. Now, in the time remaining, what I want to do is actually show you two examples from my own work. Of course, they're from my own work, so I can feel good about myself, that solve a form of information overload by tackling all 3 points of this triangle. The first one is going to be a new type of search tool that I created that looks at contextual cues to bring that information in. And the other one is a new way to actually deal with the problem of information overload from text documents. And when you have too many analyst reports, too many financial documents to read. And that's actually the one I'm going to start with first. So one of the really big problems that we see in enterprise, no matter which division of enterprise you're in, is that we have too many documents. Right? The digital age has created a wealth of information, but we don't have time to deal with it. So we need people to be able to get through hundreds or thousands of documents that they're presented with in a quick, efficient, and timely manner. And we can actually look at something that's been done for hundreds or thousands of years, which is newsprint. These are people who have dealt with that kind of problem in a very effective way. You have somebody who goes out and does some reporting, and then they bring all these different sources of information back, they synthesize it, they write a document, and then they work with a layout editor to call out the most important pieces of information. You can see here that there's a quote that's called out with bigger text in the middle. There's some text that's in bold on the left side of the screen. Here's another example where, unfortunately due to the projector, you can see that there's a quote in gray, but your eye is drawn to the physical displacement of that text. Here's another example that uses color. You see that there's red and blue, so your eye is drawn to that. And what's interesting is in the hundreds of years that we've been doing these types of print publications, there's actually been psychology research that has shown that these type of typographic and layout changes improve recall, content finding, and refinding where that was in the original text, because you have these contextual cues of, oh yeah, it was near that picture that was there, or yeah, it was near that weird thing that was in bold. So there's literature that shows that this is a better way for us to find information, but the problem is it doesn't scale. If you have one document, so you have one layout editor with one person who wrote the content, you can do this. But what happens if you're the CFO of a company and you get 500 analyst reports about our financial statement that we're about to make? Well, you can't do this for every single document. So what we tried to do is we created another way to think about this, where we treated all the documents along a distribution. So we look at the different topics that people are discussing, and we can say, you know, something is more positive and something might be more negative. But more importantly, we can now position each document and each opinion in each document in that distribution. So instead of saying that this opinion is positive or this one's negative, what we can actually say is this opinion is representative of what the crowd thinks. Or this view is divergent. This is a very contrasting view from what everyone else is thinking, which is a very different way to think about it for semantic information. Oh, and then I have these nice little road signals to sort of show that. I forgot that I had that animation. So here's a great example. So imagine that a company happened to release a new laptop, whatever company that might be, and somebody says that the display is beautiful. Well, that could actually be an out of line or divergent view, because it might be too positive. If everyone's saying, oh, that display is fine, right? Then that's a divergent view. So we can actually have things that are positive that are divergent, just as negative things that can be representative. So there's the little arrow. So we created this tool called Echo, and I'm so excited about what we do. So this is a examination of when you launch Echo. This was with a bunch of documents actually from HP's Q2 release that we had, Q2 financial results. We got all of the financial analysts in the news that were talking about HP. And here's the browser. So you can go through any of the articles that you want. You can filter the articles by topic that people are discussing. Then you can also sort them. Show me the most representative person that's talking about, I don't know, quarter, or talking about Meg Whitman, or the most divergent view that's talking about our earnings. So we can now go not just by topic, but how people are talking about those topics. And so here's it's sorted, and you can open up any individual document, and we automatically lay it out like a news editor would. We automatically figure out what is the most divergent or aligned view in that document, and we'll call it out in that pop-out box. We'll have the other opinions that are less aligned or less divergent called out in other typographic changes like bold, small caps, underlined, italic, so that it's very easy for you to visually consume and find the critical information. Somebody, we did a bunch of user studies, and somebody said this was like buying a used textbook when you were in college, something that where somebody's already done all the hard work of highlighting things for you. But moreover, because this is on a web-based medium, you can move your cursor over one of those opinions, and you actually can see the distribution. So now you understand where in that collection of 100 or thousands of documents that one opinion fits. You can also browse the article itself by those opinions. You move your cursor on the right-hand side of the screen, and you get a list of all the opinions that exist in that article. And then when you hover over it, the article will scroll to where that place is and highlight it with yellow. So now it's a new way to actually interact. So you don't have to read through it linearly. You can read through it by the opinions that exist. We then did a modification of Echo for executives that are on the go. Because if you need to run into a meeting and you need to sound like you know your shit, which you might not, you might only have like 2 minutes to actually get up to speed on the current trends. So this is the interface. It's much simpler because somebody who's on the go, once again, understanding your customers here, somebody on the go only has a few seconds. And with a quick tap button, you can pull up the executive summary, something that we have hire personal assistants to do for us on all those documents, but it's pulled out using that same idea of alignment and divergence. So this is actual data from Google's stock release. They prematurely put out their data. And one of the really interesting things, I love this example, because if you look at the relevant and aligned, everyone's saying Google didn't monetize their mobile platform well. But if you look at the most divergent view on the right, in the most divergent document, it's actually, our business had a strong quarter. And if you click on that opinion and you go to where the original text is, which you can see right there, it turns out that this was a quote from the marketing director of Google trying to spin their financial results. So this notion of alignment and divergence is really, really important. And even from any point in that document, you can then go and say, show me all the documents sorted by relevance. Show me all the documents sorted by alignment or divergence. So you can see how by considering this love triangle of design, big data, and knowing your users, how you can build a very robust platform that deals with a lot of information but has very little information overload. So that's that first example that I wanted to give. Let me just show you one more. I love animations, by the way. This is called dealing with contextual data search. So I want to start off with an example of what happens when you lose your car keys and you're about to go out of the home. What do you think? You think, where was the last place that I had them? So you think, okay, so I got up from the couch, I picked up the car keys, I walked to the fridge, I had to put the milk away, put them, the car keys are in the fridge right next to the milk. Now, semantically, what do car keys have to do with milk? Nothing. But if you think about the way human memory works, that's how it's done. It's based off of these contextual cues. So in a classic psychology experiment, you have two groups of students who are going to go and take an exam. You have one group spend their time studying in room A, and you have another group spend half their time studying in room A and half their time studying in room B. When they go to take the exam, the group of students that spent their time studying in two different rooms does better. And the main reason is contextual cues. The human brain associates information that we take in with things in our environment. And the more we associate thing A with thing B, like let's say a fact with, let's see, what is the example? With a song that was playing in the background. Every time that we make that association, tie in our brain, this is overly simplified, right? Our brain is not a tree. The more times that we make these associations, the stronger that bond gets. And so when it comes time for us to learn fact number 2, the best way that we can support that is actually by having more things in our environment for us to draw those associations with. So if all the psychology literature says this is how humans work and humans search for and recall information, why are our search tools the exact opposite? Our search tools work on semantic information. This is what the file's name is. Maybe if you're lucky, this is the content in the file. So I was thinking, what if we made a search tool that worked off of contextual cues? And I created something called UPivot. And the idea of UPivot is that you say, oh yeah, I was looking for that file and I was listening to Hell's Bells while I was reading that web page. But there was this file open at the same time. I want to get that web page back open again. So you search UPivot for that song, and then you pivot. And you can see all the files and all the information that was going on in your digital life at the exact same time. So now we let you have the hook that you most remember into your data. And sometimes you might not even remember, to think, oh yeah, it's Hell's Bells. Oh no, what's it? It was when this other thing was open. So you can actually pivot on a pivot. So you find this, you say, oh yeah, it was when that Word document was open, that website that I was looking for also exists. You find that Word document, and then you pivot again. So you can keep pivoting. It's kind of like that Wikipedia pattern that we all have, right? You start searching for Catherine the Great, and then you get to semiconductors. You don't know how the two are connected, but you can keep finding this daisy chain effect. So that's the idea of UPivot. And moreover, we actually also created something called time marks, where you can actually say, oh yeah, everything that's kind of going on right now is important. You sort of mark a moment in time, instead of like a bookmark in a web browser where you're bookmarking the pages that are open. This bookmarks the moment. And then if you can find those moments again, you can pivot off them and bring them back in. So this is what the UPivot interface looks like. It looks very much like your web browser history because it's actually part of the web browser. And you can see on the top left-hand side, you have all your streams of data. You have the applications you have running, the music you're listening to, the websites that you're visiting. Because websites are really, if you think about them, like a bunch of different apps, you can actually see all the fav icons, so you can filter on them. Here are key terms that you're searching for, and we actually even visualize how important an individual application or web page is. We did some really cool data mining technology to do that. So we can actually say, oh yeah, I know I was doing some really important Facebook stuff when this song was playing that I'm looking for. So you can actually visually search for when a lot of Facebook, whatever that means, was going on. So we're pulling data from all these different places and letting you index them the way the human brain works, the way human memory works. And that is a real change in perspective, but as a result, our users said this was very much less stressful. They felt like they could find their files in the way that they wanted to. That was easy because we understand how humans work, which are our customers. We did big data technology to be able to mine and gather and organize and search all of this data, and we had good design for how we should present this information back to the user. So that's contextual search. So these were 2 examples of what I hope you guys can see is this really nice approach, a broad brush approach to solving the problem of information overload. That it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, but it's actually looking at the data that you have, the people you're working with, and designing the interface so that it's intuitive and easy to get access to. So that's my pitch, that's my talk, and I'll take any questions anyone may have. So thank you very much.
So you said something about contextual cues when people study in 2 different locations. So I guess this sort of got me thinking about something that maybe you'd researched a little bit, is like if you wanted to avoid distraction and information overload, would it make sense, for example, to deal with different types of data when you're in different physical locations? So like looking at web pages in one room and work that required a lot of concentration in a different room.
So I don't know about the specific looking at different types of data, like web pages versus books versus other things. But I know that there have been studies that have shown that you can associate types of tasks with different environments. So that if I am at home and I play a lot of computer games in my apartment or in my house, if I then try to get work done there, it might be very hard for me to do that because I associate this physical space with a different type of activity. So that's why some people say if you can't get work done, go to a coffee shop, try to just move your location. I haven't seen anybody that I know of, not saying that hasn't been studied in terms of the type of data being looked at, though. Okay, sure. Yeah, great.
I appreciated your presentation. This may be a stretch, but there's a document that I read when I was doing my graduate work. It was called The Marks Are on the Paper. It came out of your HP research lab, and it talked about the association. It basically talked about why it's a mistake to make everything digital, because in fact there's a great deal of information that is communicated on a page, and they use the case of simply the annotations that one might make as they're reading a book or a newspaper or whatever. Anyway, if you're familiar with it, great, and if you're not, it might be worth looking at, because I think it validates much of what you've presented here, and I look forward to seeing what you do with it.
Yeah, no, I don't know about that specific piece of work, but I would agree with your summarization. But I would say something that a lot of people make a mistake when they are digitizing interactions, which is something that they try to make it a one-to-one mapping, such that they're saying, oh, well, we're going to do a digital book, so therefore we need to have a highlight function and an annotation function that feels like a pen on paper. But I think that that's a big fallacy that ends up happening as we move from physical technologies to a digital analog of the physical ones. Because think about turning a page in a book, right? This is an artificial construct of us having finite amount of space on a page. But in a digital environment, we can have an infinite scrollable page. You can change the font size of a digital book. So your book could have 100 pages if it's really tiny font, or 1,000 pages if you're using one letter per page. So I think one thing that we do need to think about as we're moving from a physical to digital environment, as we are digitizing some artifacts, is that we need to think about what is the customer trying to do, what is their goal, and then making the interface reflect that, not what the artificial construct that the physical technology happened to impose upon us at the time. So, yeah.
This may be a pointless question, but where can I get UPivot?
That is a good question, Joshua. So UPivot, when I graduated and finished my PhD, that's when I was working on it. And it's an amazing thing. You say when you're graduating, oh yeah, I'm going to keep doing that. And then you get a job. And then you don't. So UPivot is right now completely open sourced. If you go to upivot.com, you can find a link to it, I believe. At the very least, if you go to Google Code, it's up on Google Code. You can download it and keep editing it and working on it. And I mean, it's out there. And it was functional when I was doing my PhD. So I don't know if it is anymore, but it is out there. And yeah, great. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, guys.